Okay. Hello and welcome to the MRF Challenge. We're in Chennai for round 3 of the MRF 2000s, and we have 5 races for you over the next 2 days. And David Addison, the championship is still very much up for the taking.
It is. It's at the moment a two-way fight between Max de Forney and Jamie Chadwick. So you've got Belgian driver versus British driver. It's man v woman as well, because Jamie Chadwick could make history by being the first female winner of this. And 5 races, as you say, over the course of the weekend, with points for qualifying and 25 points for a win across those 5 races, means there's a lot at stake yet to play out.
There is, but both of those are further back the grid. Max de Forney is in 7th place on the grid.
And it's strange because he's kind of been the qualifying king, really, out of the previous weekend. So it's a bit mysterious as to why it never hooked up yesterday. And factor into this as well that you've got some new drivers who aren't going to affect the championship in terms of their own scores, but they can take points away from the others. One of them is Linus Lundqvist, who's up near the front of the grid. Another is Jack Doohan, who's a row further back. And they could both have a really significant part to play in the results this weekend.
Okay, well, I'm going to go and speak to them. You're going to get up to the commentary booth. Indeed. And I'll speak to you shortly.
Thanks, Louise.
So we are going to see if we can get down the grid and speak to Jack Doohan, who's in P4. There's the Vice President, Aaron Mammon, there as well. I will grab a quick word with him shortly. And let's see what Jack has to say. He's not been here before. It's the first time in the car. So, Jack, you were worried about traffic yesterday, but it seems to have come good for you.
Yeah, it was all right. I got a few clear laps in the first run on the new tyre, and I managed to put it in P4, which still I would have preferred a bit better, but for my first time here, it wasn't too bad. We went back out in the second set, a little bit more traffic then, but I managed to put another lap in, which I dropped down to P5, but getting that lap in, I got back up to P4. So now it's just focus on the race, get a good start, and then hopefully I can move up a couple positions.
Okay, thanks very much. So it's a full attack for Jack Doohan there. In P3 on the grid, we've got another newcomer. It's Linus Lundqvist. Linus put in some great free practice sessions and has just taken off for you the lead in the qualifying.
Yeah, you're right. We had 2 good practice sessions, being the quickest. Obviously, it was almost a bit of a surprise since I've never been on the track and never driven the car before. But, you know, I was happy with the car and my driving, and then qualified P3. Obviously, would have wanted a bit more, but, you know, we can fight for this in the race.
Great, thanks very much. Well, moving to the front row, Michelangelo Amendello. Hey! Now, we spoke yesterday. You did just miss out on qualifying for P1, so you're full attack now, are you?
Yeah, of course. I'm looking forward to race, so let's see how it ends.
Okay, man, a few words today, but, you know, he's getting ready for the race. Patrick Pasma, P1. Final word goes to you just before you go out. Thoughts on the race?
Well, I think it's going to be good and interesting long race.
Okay, thanks very much. David, it's back to you. I'm going to see if I can speak to Aaron Mammon as well.
Louise, thanks very much. Yes, we are getting set. Drivers very much in the zone, as you can gather from the slightly taciturn answers on the grid. But Michelangelo Amendola sensing that he might be on for a maiden victory here. Patrick Pasma has had a win this season. Linus Lundqvist new to the MRF Challenge. So you've got 3 guns right at the front there. And as we were making the point on the grid, Jamie Chadwick starting a little bit further back. She will be 6th, and 7th is championship rival Max Deforny. He's got 201 points to the 183 of Jamie Chadwick. So it's certainly not a formality that Max is going to win this. It's going to be a fascinating weekend. Right. Let us go back down to the grid because MRF, of course, a big supporter. Let's hear from the tyre company.
Aaron Mammon, it's lovely to see you here on the grid, on this full grid, on this hot day. What are you expecting for the race?
Oh, it's been fantastic. The racing has been a fantastic journey, and this is the 7th year we've been doing this championship, and it's getting year on year, it's getting better and better.
It absolutely is, and close racing. So let's see what's going to happen on this one.
Sure. Let's hope for the best.
Okay, thank you very much.
You only have to look around the circuit and you see the effort that MRF puts in, not just to the championship, but to the circuit here as well. And this, of course, finishing on home soil, is a very important marketing weekend for MRF. The championship has been to Dubai and Bahrain, and as we made the point already, 3 weekends, but 5 races, not 4 fours, as it has been in the past. So you get more track time per weekend, but of course the overall cost is down because you've got 1 fewer event to have to travel to. So the cars on the grid, everybody in the same identical chassis. These are MRF F2000s. They are 2-litre Mountune Duratec engine, 230 brake horsepower, single seaters on a Formula 3 chassis from Dallara. And this is how we look in the championship after 10 of 15 races. Max Deforny ahead of Jamie Chadwick, Andreas Essner 3rd, Daniel Frost absent this weekend, and Patrick Pasman now on 96 points because he gets 2 for the fastest lap in qualifying yesterday. He is ahead of another absent driver, Petr Potacek, with Michelangelo Amendola, the Belgian driver, 7th. So you get to see how topsy-turvy a grid it is based on the championship points and who is where as we get set to go racing. It will be 20 laps, and Patrick Pasma, the man, starting then on pole position. The circuit is 3.7 kilometres long. Temperatures going up all the time now. We're up to 30 degrees track temperature. Just standing on the grid a few minutes ago, there was a welcome element of cool as a big cloud came across and covered the sun for a couple of seconds, but temperatures very high indeed. The drivers incidentally get 5 sets of tyres across the weekend, so they need to think about how they use that because it's 5 for practice, for qualifying and for the races. So you might use 1 for free practice. You might, of course, wherever possible, try and keep a couple of sets for races where you have a good grid position, either because you've qualified well or because of a reverse grid, and that's races 2 and 4 with a top 6 result reverse grid. You're up near the front. It could also be, of course, that in order to do that, you mix and match a little bit. So for one race, you've got 2 used and 2 new, or you run a complete set twice if you're near the back, because you're not going to lose very much by doing so. It's interesting to see how the teams work it, and we'll maybe hear tomorrow when the tyre factor comes in, rather more importantly for 3 races, how they are playing it. So 20 laps are in prospect. There's a green flag lap coming up, and then we will be in business then for the first of the 5 races in the MRF Challenge here at the Madras Motor Race Track this weekend. The pink and white car you just saw there was Jamie Chadwick's, the British driver, winner of the reverse grid race at Brands Hatch in British Formula 3. It was a race where, admittedly, she crossed the line 2nd, but the car ahead had a jump start penalty, so Jamie took the win. Former British GT4 class champion within the British GT Championship. She's not the only lady driver on the grid either, because the Saudi racer, Rima Al-Jafali, is at the back, and Rima was a winner in the TRD GT86 Cup in Abu Dhabi in December. There aren't many Saudi Arabian ladies with a road licence, never mind a race licence, so very much a pioneer is Rima Al-Jafali. Under the MRF arch, the cars turn, ready for this formation lap. They will, of course, slot into place at the end of it, and then we will be in business for a 20-lap race. And as the field files through, not only is everybody in the same car, but of course they're all run out of the same team. JA Motorsport is the company that administers the 2-litre and the MRF 1600 Challenge. And many of the engineers are imported, as it were, from the UK or from elsewhere in Europe. Quite a few familiar faces from GT or touring car, as well as single-seater racing from the UK, up and down the pit lane. One of whom, Chris Weller, has never missed an MRF Challenge race, and for many, many years Chris was the man behind the Promotechnic Formula 3 team in the UK, nowadays a lecturer at the College of Motorsport at Silverstone. But as you look at the grid, another familiar UK face, Anthony Boyo-Hyatt, the man behind the RR Racing squad, but he's a technical delegate for the championship, and a lot of Boyo's effort goes into trying to attract some of the Europeans across to come and do the races in this championship. So Patrick Pasma and Michelangelo Amendola at the front, ahead of Linus Lundqvist and Jack Doohan, the two newcomers well placed ahead of Andreas Essner and Jamie Chadwick, outpacing in qualifying championship rival Max Deforney. Dylan Young had a crash in FP2. Glenn Van Berlo is another newcomer, and Sebastian Essner, the younger brother of Andreas, rounds out the top 10 on the grid. Glenn Van Berlo, incidentally brother of Kay Van Berlo, sports car racer. Valdemar Eriksson is 11th, the Indian driver. Chetan Korada, who races with prosthetic feet, is 12th on the grid, ahead of Josh Mason, another newcomer to the championship this year, and Rima Al-Jafali is there at the rear of the grid. So that is who is where, ready to go racing. The front row has arrived quite a long way in advance of Linus Lundqvist, who now slots into position. So can Patrick Pasma maintain this advantage? Can he convert pole into a race lead? Can he hang on to it? These cars, because of the fact they have aero, are not that easy in which to overtake, and this is not that easy a circuit on which to overtake, given the fact that the cars are with the aero, and it's a fairly narrow circuit anyway, so track position it is possible to gain, but it's not easy, and so if you can defend well, you're in the box seat, no question about it. So the last couple of cars are in place. The medical car at the back, the chase car, will get the green flag to say that everybody has returned. We'll get the 5-second board very shortly as well. And then the lights will go red when 5 lights go out. MRF Challenge Race 1 will be go. And it's a bad start by Lundqvist, who bogs down. Everybody's managed to jink around him so far, but Linus Lundqvist very slow away off the line. All the good work from qualifying is undone as Pasma leads the way. Amendola is second as they dive into turn 1, and Lundqvist is stone last, looking at it as they come up towards turn 2. So that puts him in strife in this, and he's going to have to work very hard to salvage a decent grid position for the second race, because it's the results of this with the top 6 reverse that sorts out the grid for race 2. There's dust settling at turn 2. 21 is Josh Mason, Rima Al-Jafali alongside him, and Jafali is off the road coming out of turn 3. Lundqvist up the inside of Mason. The battle is on not to be last at the moment, and Mason keeps Lundqvist at bay as they come out of the S's. Rima Al-Jafali is back on track, and Patrick Pasma leads the way. Michelangelo Amendola is second, and newcomer Jack Doohan, Mick Doohan's son, another regular in British F4 this year, he's third, going well, first time in these cars, first time here. So Doohan showing good pace, and they wriggle their way out of turn 5 with Linus Lundqvist then, after that pop start, really struggling to make up any ground at all now as they come out of turn 5. So, race very much joined. Where for the championship are Jamie Chadwick and Max Deforney, as Rima Al-Jafali is off the road now, coming out of turn 7. Is she beached on the curb? Please say you're not. No, she's got it going again. So, down they come out of turn 9. Pasma leading Amendola. Third is Doohan. In 4th place, there you can see, it is Andreas Essner. Jamie Chadwick, 5th, 6th, Dylan Young. And look at 7th is Deforney. He's about to become 8th, isn't he? Yes! Because up on the inside line, there goes Sebastian Essner, and Max Deforney, the championship leader, is having a nightmare of a race. Gets back up on the inside line, gets sideways coming out of turn 11, tries to retake the place as they crest the rise. Can he get back ahead of Essner? He can, just on the inside, yes. And also making a move through there is number 16 of Glenn Van Berlo. Through they come then, over the timing line to complete lap 1. Patrick Pasma leading by 0.8 of a second from Michelangelo Amendola. Jack Doohan there third. Chadwick then going through in 5th place, but Max Deforney not only is further back, but also there's quite a bit of space between him and the cars ahead that he needs to be attacking and trying to gain ground from. Linus Lundqvist 12th after that awful start. He has made up a little bit of ground, but not as much as he would like to have done. So Lundqvist faces a pretty tough challenge here, getting up the order, but so does Deforney. Max Deforney, who, given his pedigree in Formula Renault, both in the NEC and the Euro Cup, you'd have thought would have been a real shoe-in in this. But this weekend, when the pressure is on, it just seems to be unravelling a little bit for him. Didn't qualify as well as anticipated, and it's not yet hooked up for him come the first race. He's not making progress. He was 7th on the grid. He is running 7th at the end of the opening lap, but even that took an awful lot of effort to maintain. Down they come to turn 8. You look at Jamie Chadwick. Let's have a look at the start of the race. Now have a look on the left-hand side. Linus Lundqvist gets away, but bogs down completely. The car sort of jolts forward, and that means that others have to scatter around him. In fairness, that might have just ever so slightly impeded Max Deforny, because as he had to lift and get round, that cost him a bit of momentum and lost him a bit of ground and a bit of pace and a place. But even so, Linus Lundqvist last into the first corner and has put himself very much on the back foot now, coming to the completion of lap number 2 as the leader goes by then. Patrick Pasma it is up front. He's 1.4 seconds ahead of Michelangelo Amendola. Jack Doohan is third, Andreas Essner is fourth, Jamie Chadwick's fifth, Dylan Young sixth, Deforny is seventh. Up into 8th is Ericsson, 9th now is Sebastian Essner, up into 10th has come Linus Lundqvist, 11th is Glenn Van Berlo, 12th is Josh Mason, 13th is Chetan Korada, and 14th Riemer Al Jafali. There is Deforny then, the Belgian driver whose father Didier Deforny was no mean GT racer in the 90s, single-seater gun before that. But Max then, who, as I say, a couple of years ago looked like a very, very good talent in Formula Renault. His career has plateaued a bit in 2018. He didn't get the results anticipated in Formula Renault Euro Cup. Come to this championship to keep himself sharp. But this weekend, when he needs to be delivering, this driver, Jamie Chadwick, has the whip hand. 5th at the moment is Jamie Chadwick, former Ginetta Junior racer, came into the sport in Ginetta Juniors before going into GT4 with the Beechdean Aston Martin team, and single-seated this year. Josh Mason spins in the background and gets collected by Chetan Korada. That could well be a safety car, because Josh Mason's car, look, is atop the front of Korada. It was Josh Mason's spin. Chetan Korada had nowhere to go, really. He gets out of the problem, but can he get going? They're right on the lip of the circuit. I can't believe that if they can't rejoin, they're going to be allowed to stay there. So I think we are going to have the race neutralised as Patrick Pasma goes through. He's going to really be grumpy about that. Mason gets going, which is the good news, and Korada gets going. Josh Mason's car looks like it's got some damage, maybe a tyre. Could it have been a puncture that tapped him into the spin? I just wonder whether the suspension may not have already been down as the car started to rotate. Anyway, Mason is back and circulating, which means that thankfully the race won't need to be interrupted. Patrick Pasma leading Michelangelo Amendola at the end of the previous lap by 1.9 seconds, and the yellow flags then can be withdrawn as the cars here come up through the S's on the run to turn 4. There is Max Deforny, you caught a glimpse of. Jamie Chadwick hanging on to her place at the moment in 5th spot. And Josh Mason, incidentally, limping back. It does have broken suspension. Now, whether it was the suspension breakage that caused him to spin, we rather assume so, but the car is limping back. It may even get lapped on its in-lap here as the leaders accelerate their way up towards us with Patrick Pasma, the race leader. There is Doohan. And Deforny now closing up onto the back of Dylan Young, who in turn, I would offer you, is closing on Jamie Chadwick. So there's a battle pack developing now for 5th, 6th and 7th places. Deforny goes through. The Belgian driver inching up onto the back of the Australian Dylan Young, who's been a mainstay of this championship. He's competed in most seasons of it. Josh Mason's damaged car down the pit lane. It's the left rear corner that's broken on it. And Deforny comes out of turn 11, inching up onto the back of the Australian Dylan Young. The leader, Patrick Pasma, goes over the timing line with Michelangelo Amendola now let's see what the gap is, 4.6 seconds back. So the leader is escaping happily up the road. Patrick Pasma, who took a win in Dubai, leads here in India. There is Max Deforny getting closer and closer all the time to Dylan Young. He thinks about making a move on the inside line, but he can't really make that stick. Through they turn, not quite as one, but Deforny now looks the faster of the two. Can he make the move quickly? He can't afford to sit in the dirty air for too long, because that's going to be counterproductive. It will slow him down and he will lose more pace and therefore more time against that car, Jamie Chadwick's, which is the real target. He needs to be ahead to try to outscore Jamie Chadwick as far as the championship is concerned. Deforny looking a little bit quicker here than Dylan Young. He did outpace him in qualifying. Let's see what can be done in the race. Now, Michelangelo Amendola has just done the absolute best within the first sector. In other words, he's closing the gap to the race leader. So up front at the moment is Patrick Pasma. Amendola is second. In 3rd place it's Doohan. In 4th place is Essner. 5th is Chadwick, and here is the battle for 6th. Dylan Young only just ahead of Max Deforny. Can Deforny line up to make a move as they run now down towards turn 10? The answer is no. Again, you get close and straight away you're in the dirty air that has that negative effect on your aero, makes you go slower. So you've got to attack from quite a long way back. is there a straight long enough to enable you to do that? Or the other option is you try and force a mistake out of a driver. So the leaders go through. Michelangelo Amendola now having done the fastest lap of the race, and he's brought the gap down from, what do we have it at, 4.6 to 2.4 seconds. So Patrick Pasma has lost a big chunk of time on that lap. Amendola pushing, bringing the gap down as the cars now turn up through turn 3. And Dylan Young is starting to feel the pressure, you can tell, because right there with him now is Max Deforny. 6th and 7th they run. Jamie Chadwick further up the road. Her last lap was a 1:32.5. But Dylan Young with Deforny breathing down his neck comes now onto the approach to turn 8. Goes Deforny, 7th, the championship leader with work to do. Amendola is still pushing because he's done another personal and indeed now absolute best within sector 1. Jack Doohan chasing after him, but just dropping away ever so slightly. But the gap is coming down between the top 2, and off the road again is Rima Al Jafari. That's coming out of turn 3. So Al Jafari off and back on again. Meantime, what can Deforny do about Dylan Young? You see at the top of the shot there, they're close. Just wonder as well whether Jamie Chadwick might not be closing onto the back of Andreas Essner. She's fractionally quicker in the first 2 sectors of the lap here. Out of turn 12 comes Dylan Young then. Up towards the timing line, up through the gears, over the line. All these cars these days, this second generation of the car with the sequential gearbox, the earlier cars had the H pattern, which was a real test because it wasn't something that the drivers had to use elsewhere. But now in line with most contemporary racing cars, it's the paddle shift gearbox, and the leading gap is still hovering at the 2.4 second mark. Valdemar Eriksson goes through. Now that's Linus Lundqvist in 9th place, recovering from 14th into turn 1, but finding now as the gaps open up that life is getting tougher and tougher. Lundqvist ideally would like a safety car to bring him back into the game, I guess, but for the moment he is concentrating on trying to catch Eriksson, and it's not that easy to do, as you see. The gap is 0.7 of a second between those two. So Lundqvist, fresh from a race in the Daytona 24 Hours last month, got that by dint of the Sunoco prize that runs in British National Racing. He was the BRDC F3 champion last year, and he comes now up through turn 7, chasing on in pursuit of Valdemar Eriksson, who raced in the Danish Formula 4 championship last season. Now Deforny versus Young, that gap was 7/10 starting the lap, but Max Deforny can't find a way by. So is Dylan Young going to crack and make a mistake, which will give Deforny an opportunity? Jamie Chadwick further up the road, still looking pretty solid in that 5th place. That's good for the championship. So if things were to stay as they are, 7th for Deforny would give him 6 points against the 10 for Jamie Chadwick. So he would maintain his advantage, but it would be reduced, of course. One more race tomorrow, today, 3 tomorrow for these cars. Deforny kicks up the dirt then as he runs a little bit wide coming out of turn 3. Now they sprint their way with Patrick Pasma there as the race leader up towards the long looping right-hander at turn 5 and 6. Patrick Pasma comes through, looking good up front. It's been a mixed bag of results really for Patrick Pasma. He's not scored in a couple, but he has been very consistent in the others, regularly on the podium. And a race winner, as I said, in Dubai. Patrick Pasma, who raced in British F4 both last season and the year before. He was for the Carlin team in 17, he was with Arden and was a double race winner in 2018. There's Max Deforny. The jump from an F4 to an MRF Challenge car, perhaps greater than it is from, say, Formula Renault into one of these cars. But Max Deforny being humbled here by Pasma. Closing again on Dylan Young. That car well rebuilt yesterday after its crash in FP2 for qualifying. And Dylan Young using it to good effect as he comes across the timing line once more in now 6th place. There goes Max Deforny through behind him. Dylan Young has dropped off the timing screen for reasons unknown. I think the transponder may have had a glitch, but there is De Forney, turning his way through in 7th place, still on the back of the Australian. So Linus Lundqvist pressing on lower down the order. He's up into 8th now. He's got past Valdemar Eriksson. So Lundqvist making strides forward. Hooks a wheel over the dirt. Now there's quite a long way, like 8 seconds up the road before he finds another car. And that would be in the hands of Max De Forney. So Lundqvist's race, unless he gets a safety car to help him out, may now have peaked. There's Jamie Chadwick coming into view. 2 seasons she's had in British F3, as I say, race winner last season. There is De Forney still chasing after Dylan Young, but he's just stuck, he locks up even going into turn 10 there. He just can't make the progress now. Now arguably, at least he's banking points, but what would also be significant going into the second race, remember, is that you reverse the top 6 finishers. That would put Jamie Chadwick on the front row, and it would keep Max De Forney on the 4th row. So there's more at stake here than just one place. There's also, if you like, shadowing Jamie Chadwick going into the second race. So he desperately needs to gain the place. It gives him points, but it gives him also a front row start going into the second race. Patrick Pasma, though, is looking oh so good up front. The gap is stretching once more. It's up to 3.2 seconds now. So number 5, Patrick Pasma, blasts clear and accelerates down the straight now towards turn 8 on his own. Michelangelo Amendola unable to go with him. At the halfway stage now, this is lap number 10 of the 20. Jamie Chadwick through, Dylan Young 6th, 7th there, Max De Forney. Big gap, as you see, between him and Linus Lundqvist there, who is next. Lundqvist down towards turn 8 now. The one retirement, remember, Josh Mason, out of this first race of the weekend. Now, Patrick Pasma has just done the absolute best in the middle sector. Fuel load coming down, of course, and proof there's just still enough life in the rubber, even though you've done half the race in hot temperatures, to still be able to push and get a good lap out of the car. He has done a 1:31.217 as the fastest lap of the race now. There, number 10, is the car of Sebastian Esner, and behind him is Glenn van Baarlo. Dutch driver, new to the championship this weekend, goes through. Over the timing line they come once again. So onto lap 11 goes the race leader Patrick Pasma. These two squabbling lower down for 10th and 11th places, and of course therefore the last championship point as well up for grabs here. Josh Mason, having said he was the one retirement, I apologise, he's back in the race, he's just gone past me. So the damage quickly repaired, and they sent him back out because it's useful to get the mileage as a test session for later on. And of course, you never know, if somebody else has a problem and you can finish, you might gain a place in the result, and therefore a better grid position. So Josh Mason is back out and circulating. That's the car looked after by Chris Weller that I was talking about before the race got underway. There you can see Glenn van Baarlo, who's a relative car racing rookie, because although the family has a sports car team, he's only, as far as I can work out, had one Creventic 24-hour series race in his career in a Porsche 911, and that's it as far as car racing results materialise. Very good in karting. Double Dutch karting champion in things like Rotax Max, Micro Max and Mini Max series. Now Dylan Young, the Australian driver, is getting away there, look, from Max De Forney. Down they come out of turn 12, and that gap is widening between the two of them. Through they come. Dylan Young is now a second and a half up on De Forney, who gives the impression of having to settle, and some of the fire has gone out of him by the look of it as well. So Max De Forney perhaps thinking, well, I've pushed, I've tried, can't do it, going to have to bank the points here. But as I say, the problem that's going to come next is Jamie Chadwick there will be at the front of the grid for race 2, and on the 4th row will be Max De Forney. So Jamie has a much better chance of gaining points within that second race and narrowing the margin even more to De Forney going into tomorrow's 3 crucial showdown races. Jamie Chadwick up towards turn 6 then. A 20-year-old British driver, former Carter. Both Jamie and her brother very competitive in Ginetta Juniors they both started in. It was back in 2012 that Jamie made the step from karting into cars with the JHR team, Stephen Hunter's squad. Had a couple of seasons of Ginetta Juniors and then went into GT4 to win the championship in 2015. Stayed with Aston Martin, but with the Generation AMR team a year later. And then in 2017 moved into Formula 3 in the BRDC British Championship and was 8th in that series in 2018 with this famous win that got her a huge amount of coverage. First female victor in British Formula 3 in its long, long history. So Jamie Chadwick goes through now. Just wonder whether Dylan Young may not be a little bit closer. Last time, yeah, he was certainly quicker in the middle sector of the lap. To the eye, he looks nearer. And so the gap between them is 1.2 seconds. Dylan Young just hooks a wheel onto the dirt there, onto the curb as he accelerates through the S's. The Australian, because he's now shaken off De Forny, can concentrate a bit more on what's going on up the road ahead of him. So he doesn't have to defend anymore. He can take the quicker lines and go after the cars ahead as they come through turn 5 now. Dylan Young, who for many, many years has harboured aspirations to be a supercar racer in Australia, but it's just never happened for him. But the majority of his racing has been at this time of year in this championship, within the MRF Challenge. So he knows the cars, he knows the circuit, he knows the culture. And he comes down towards the turn 8 and 9 sequence with the black and white car in 6th spot, getting away all the time now from De Forny. The gap up to 2 seconds last time around. So Dylan Young looking good here for a top 6 finish. He's never had a victory in these MRF Challenge races, but he could be on pole position, of course, going into the race this afternoon. And from there, who knows what might happen. He was on the podium in Bahrain in the reverse grid race, got third there. Goes under the MRF arch. There is De Forny still running in 7th place, but losing touch all the time. But he is being caught by Linus Lundqvist. There is Lundqvist, who's here just to see what he can achieve, really, and to keep himself sharp as he thinks about the next stage in his career. But Lundqvist not here for championship honours, that's the preserve of others, but it's interesting to see how he's getting on. And also the same is true of Jack Doohan, the Red Bull Junior driver, because he too is having a very impressive showing in 3rd place behind Michelangelo Amendola, who raced in the championship last year. So Amendola is the highest placed of those with car and track knowledge, don't forget. So there is number 3, that is Dylan Young. He's the man in 6th spot. And as he goes through, the gap coming down slightly still, perhaps, to Jamie Chadwick. Let's see, in the first sector, no, eyes deceive. In the middle sector, let's see, he lost a 10th or so in sector 1. We're about to come to the end of the middle sector. There is Chadwick, there is Young. Certainly Dylan is having a go, runs way wide coming out of turn 9, and he has pulled a 10th back within sector 2. So that gap comes down a little bit between the pair. Now, if they were to get themselves together, that might just, you know, bring Max De Forny into the melting pot here, because if he were to suddenly benefit from the two holding each other up, he would be back onto the tail of Dylan Young and might be able to affect the battle again. We'll have to wait and see as they come through. But Doohan 3rd, Esner 4th, Chadwick 5th, Young 6th. Now starting to get themselves in a long, long line as they go by with 14 laps now completed. They've also got a bit of traffic to worry about, look, because Riem Al Jafali is being lapped and has got ahead of Andreas Esner, slightly in the way here, because through the S's there's just nowhere to overtake, and it means that Esner's going to have to be bowled on the inside into turn 4, and Riem Al Jafali gets out of the way eventually, gives him room, and Jamie Chadwick goes by as well. But Jamie actually has benefited most out of all of that. That gap has come right down. It was over a second, but it's now only a couple of lengths between Esner and Chadwick. And now Dylan Young, who will have been watching all of that, wants to try and get past as well before he gets delayed and gets caught by Max De Forny. Young goes through as well, so he's put a lap on Riem Al Jafali. And now Max De Forny needs to try and make that charge as well as they come then for the 15th time down towards the right-hander at turn 8. There is Max Deforny, puts a lap on Rima Al Jafali, goes through on the inside line. So Chadwick and Young through the right-hander of turn 12 and now up towards the timing line once again. Now Dylan Young's last lap, bringing him to within 9/10 of Jamie Chadwick. Partly, I think that was because of the traffic, but you can see now to the eye that they are much, much closer. So as Jamie Chadwick has been trying to concentrate on catching Andreas Essner, now once again attention shifts to the mirrors to try and work out whether she's going to be able to fend off Dylan Young. Dylan Young equally wants to try and make that move if he can. He's running out of laps, running out of options. But mysterious Max Deforny just can't stay with them. The pace just not there, is it? Seventh place for a man fighting for a championship, not great news. So through they turn. Max Deforny heads towards turn 8. Now there's Linus Lundqvist behind him, and that gap down a little bit more. It's now 5 seconds between them. It was 8 a few laps ago, remember. So the 20-year-old Belgian, Max Deforny, being reeled in by the Super Swede. Max, whose karting career began 10 years ago. He was a Benelux KF5 karting champion in 2010, and he's going to have to use all of that skill, I fear, this weekend to get himself this championship, because right now he can't do it on pure pace. Leaders over the line. Jack Doohan goes through turn 1, chased by Andreas Essner. And there is Dylan Young, who is this time around 1 second adrift of Jamie Chadwick, has dropped back ever so slightly. There is Max Deforny, who is 1.7 adrift of Dylan Young, so there's no suggestion that he's being able to up his pace and go after the Australian driver here either. Deforny with a touch of understeer, runs wide there coming out of turn 5. Now, is that part of the problem? Is it set up on that car that's not quite right? Is that why the pace is not there? They have 2 free practice sessions before qualifying and then 5 races, so a huge amount of track time is given to them. But maybe Deforny's car is still not quite as he would like it. There he is, out of turn 8. Doesn't look as though it's handling any different, particularly from the others, but there is something that is just not there for Deforny. Meantime, Patrick Pasma has crossed the line, put 17 laps in the book. He's got 3 to go, and he's looking good at the moment for a race win. Not only that, but by some margin, he's stretched it up to 4.5 seconds here, so Patrick Pasma well clear up front. Number 11, Andreas Essner, going by. Another F4 graduate, Andreas Essner, who's come from the German and the Italian Formula 4 categories. He's been racing in those for the last couple of seasons. So as he turns now through the S's, Essner's target will be Jack Doohan, but that's nearly 3 seconds up the road, Jack Doohan's car. The Red Bull Junior driver clear and looking for a podium, first time out. It's interesting, isn't it, because all the attention this weekend, understandably perhaps, has been about Linus Lundqvist, quickest in both of the free practice sessions, but when it comes to the first race, Doohan is looking a little bit stronger because, of course, of Lundqvist's start that has cost him dear. There is Doohan making the sprint now down towards turn 8. Jamie Chadwick versus Andreas Essner. Let's see whether that gap is coming down. Jamie Chadwick has also gone a missing from the timing screen, but she's clearly there in the race. So Jamie Chadwick 1.6 seconds back. Can she bring that down in the time remaining? Chetan Corrada, incidentally, who was the other driver involved in the Josh Mason tangle earlier on, he too is still circulating and currently is in the top dozen. He's running in 12th place. So Max Deforny down through turn 12. He is 7th. over the timing line, they all stream with now 2 laps to go. Lundqvist through, and he's under 4 seconds adrift. He's halved the gap now to De Forny, and that gives you some illustrations to the relative pace of the two, doesn't it? So Lundqvist pushing, 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 and De Forny, a man who's needing to push because his championship's on the line here, not making the progress. He's dropping away and being caught. So big frustration for De Forny, and we await then the race leader, Patrick Pasma, to come up towards now turn 9. It's looking very strong indeed in this is Pasma, and curious because across free practice he didn't really stand out at all. He got everything hooked up really well quite late in the qualifying session, and bang, he has dominated this first of the 5 races of the weekend. Pasma over the brow then, down he comes with Chetan Korada not that far up the road. He might be lapped on the last lap. Let's see, there is Pasma with one more tour of the Madras Motor Racetrack to go. Offline, you see how dirty and dusty it is. That tends to compromise people on the inside of the grid, but that can't be the reason that Linus Lundqvist will use. Second place still Michelangelo Amendola, 4 seconds back. Doohan is third, big gap back now. Andreas Essner fourth, there is Jamie Chadwick. That gap has opened up over Dylan Young, who in turn is 1.7 seconds clear of De Forny, and there is Linus Lundqvist in 8th place. Impressive debut this by Jack Doohan, first time out. They're going through Jamie Chadwick, taking another 4 points out of the championship lead of Max De Forny. So it's a good start to the weekend. It's a positive start to the weekend for Jamie Chadwick, as car number 8, Michelangelo Amendola, comes now down to turn 8. There is number 4, Jack Doohan. Through they turn. There's going to be one more lap to run at the end for the back markers. But for the leading cars, the last lap is already about 2/3 of the way through, because Patrick Pasma, who has been in dominant fashion in this race, comes down towards the approach to turn 12. There he is, and the checkered flag is at the ready for Patrick Pasma to win race 1 of the weekend in the LMRF Challenge. Patrick Pasma, the race winner, he comes through. Michelangelo Amendola is going to be second, and for third should be Jack Doohan. The gap at the flag, 5 seconds between Pasma and Amendola. Doohan takes third, Andreas Essner fourth, Jamie Chadwick fifth then. 6th goes the way of Dylan Young, and 7th, Max De Forny, with, as the flags fly, 8th going the way of Linus Lundqvist, who you will see there in the background. 9th will be Valdemar Eriksson, and to round out the top 10, Glenn van Baarlo. But a good effort, very good effort indeed by Patrick Pasma. Takes the race victory. And Patrick Pasma, who, just thinking championship, is the man that lies 5th. It's a long, long way back. I don't think he can really be a dark horse, but he can certainly, as has just been proved, take points away from the others. So Patrick Pasma takes a 2nd victory of the MRF Challenge season. And a very happy man he is too, understandably so. Well done, that man. Patrick Pasma then wins race 1 in the MRF Challenge. Makes his way on this in-lap out of turn 9. Chetan Korada's car is behind him, the lapped driver. So Patrick Pasma, the winner from Michelangelo Amendola, and 3rd, Jack Doohan. Andreas Essner taking 4th, Jamie Chadwick 5th, Dylan Young 6th, the championship leader, Max De Forny only in 7th place. 8th, Linus Lundqvist, 9th, Valdemar Eriksson, and 10th, Glenn van Baarlo. So Patrick Pasma, the race winner, 5.052 seconds, that margin over Michelangelo Amendola, and then Jack Doohan. Andreas Essner 4th, Jamie Chadwick 5th, and to underline the international nature of the championship, Finland, Belgium, Australia, Germany and the UK taking the top 5 places. Australia 6 and Belgium 7, Sweden 8, Denmark 9, Holland 10. So Patrick Pasma is a very happy man indeed. He wasn't terribly loquacious on the grid. Let's see whether he's a little bit more talkative now that he's a race winner here at the Madras Motor Race track. But certainly an excellent drive. Second and third, Michelangelo Amendola and then Jack Doohan arrive on the scene as well, ready for the interviews and for the podium. Harrison Newey there in the blue t-shirt and the shorts, champion 2 years ago, who's here doing some driver coaching, but also is doing some tyre testing in private in the week. And Harry Newey, now a very successful sports car racer, an enthusiastic supporter of this championship that he won in a tie-break 2 years ago. So the drivers in the top 3 marshalled towards that checkered flag winners zone in the top of the pit lane. Others go to the teams, and we'll try and catch a word with the drivers. The third placed man being one of the newcomers this weekend, which is Jack Doohan, moving from British F4 into the MRF Challenge. Jack Doohan taking third place, 11 seconds off the race winner, but a podium result for Jack Doohan nonetheless. And we can hear from the Australian. He is in the pit lane with Louise.
Jack, you took full advantage of the mistakes at the beginning there. Pleased with that on the podium?
Yeah, no, it's all right. Struggled a bit then. I don't think I was. I could have been a bit sharper off the start. Just first time, with the clutch, I think I stuffed up a little bit there. But other than that, it was a good race. Learned a bit. Need to find adjustments on the car, and I think we'll be able to challenge for a few better positions in the coming races.
All right, thank you.
So Jack Doohan, hard taskmaster on himself there. I mean, third place, not a bad result at all, but saying he stuffed up a little bit off the start. Not as much as Linus Lundqvist did, however, because that was, as we've been making the point, an awful getaway and certainly compromised that race and potentially race 2 for him as well, because it'll be a starting grid position of 8th for that. So Jack Doohan taking third, Michelangelo Amendola second place, and Amendola, I would have thought, would be pretty pleased with that, because it brings him his best result of the season. He was third in Dubai, but second is his best yet. And there is the race winner, that's Patrick Pasma, the rapid Finn. We'll get to him in a moment, but Michelangelo Amendola taking a best yet in the challenge. Second place.
Michelangelo getting some shade straight away. It must have been hard work out there, but managed to get the P2.
Yeah, it was a pretty good race. It was long, so and beginning of the race we made a little mistake, and then we created a gap. So the pace was pretty good, so next race should be better.
Okay, thanks very much.
And the race winner, Patrick Pasma, is next on the hit list of people to hear from. The podium there in the background being readied. And Michelangelo Amendola gets the sponsor's decals on his overalls. In the background, you'll see and hear perhaps cars for the Indian Touring Car Championship making their way round to the grid, because they will be racing next. But the winning driver, Patrick Pasma, his second win of the year. He's with Louise.
Now, I'm just going to have to step into this interview quickly because we're live. Well done on that performance, Patrick. It was dominant.
Thank you.
Tell me about the race for you.
Well, it was really long and hot race. We got the result we wanted, so yeah, I'm happy.
And looking ahead to race 2,
Yeah.
Obviously that reverse grid.
Yeah, we try to get as many points as we can, and yeah.
Okay, well, go and celebrate on the podium. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done, Patrick Pasma. Excellent drive. And he will now, of course, have to start on the third row of the grid. You take the results of this race, but with a top 6 reverse. That was the point I was making about Dylan Young starting on pole. Jamie Chadwick then on the front row, but championship rival Max Deforney starting on the 4th row by coming home in 7th place. Patrick Pasma, following the line of many Finns of still not being very talkative, even as a race winner.
We are now here in the home place of MRF Tyres Limited.
The winning drivers.
Today's wonderful race, full of
about to be brought
surprises.
forward.
Time to give away the prizes, the winners. But first, let me call upon our dignitary, Vice Chairman and Managing Director of MRF Tyres Limited, Mr. Arun Maman. A round of applause for Mr. Arun Maman, please.
So Arun Maman, the chairman of MRF.
All right, the surprise podium for the day from Australia, Jack Doohan. Yeah, I know you guys know the last name. Jack Doohan, well done. Congratulations. And in second place, no stranger to Chennai,
Podium.
Michelangelo Amendola from Belgium.
The Belgian driver Michelangelo Amendola, and then race winner Patrick Pasma will head to the podium as well.
And the star of this race, in control right through, from Finland, Patrick Pasma. Well done.
There is Patrick Pasma, and to the applause of some of the guests opposite.
And after that nice photo, time to give away the
podium
jewelry.
A second win of the
Third
season.
place
And
to
now Arun
Jack
Maman steps
Doohan
forward with the trophies. First of all, to Jack Doohan. First time in the championship, first time here, first time racing one of these cars.
Second place.
And he gets a trophy for second place.
Michelangelo Amendola.
Amendola, his best result in the MRF Challenge, second place.
And
Could
a
he
big
be a winner
one
by
to
the end of the weekend? He's shown good speed
the
thus
winner,
far. But Patrick Pasma is a race winner. Race 1 of 5 this weekend goes.
Nice
to the
photo.
Flying Finn. Patrick Pasma wins race 1 here.
Lots
at
of
the
racing
MRT.
ahead. Hang in there. This is turning out to be a wonderfully exciting climax to the championship.
So the drivers making their way off the podium, and a very, very happy Patrick Pasma, proving that it wasn't a one-off, that victory in Dubai. And it's a shame that the 2 races that he's not been able to score in have cost him in the championship. Let's look then at the best bits of this first race of the weekend in the MRF Challenge, with Linus Lundqvist making that bad start, bogging down off the line, losing places and being last into the first corner. Josh Mason ran wide coming out of turn 2, and Max de Forney was also on the back foot in the early stages, losing ground. He tried to get back past Dylan Young, but it was just not to be, and he fell further and further away as the battle raged on. Jamie Chadwick outscoring, outpacing Max de Forney, as up front Patrick Pasma continued to dominate the race. There was a brief skirmish between Josh Mason and Chetan Khorana, but that didn't bring out the safety car. It meant that the race continued unaffected, and it made life even more difficult for those that had gaps open up ahead of them. At the checkered flag, it was win number 2 for Patrick Pasma. An excellent effort in this first race of the weekend in the MRF Challenge. More to come from Louise Beckett and David Addison. For now, it's goodbye.